greeted you when you got to heaven. Who was that?
Well, I was praying in my bedroom, on my knees, Sid, and I went into a vision, and the next thing I knew, I was going up, 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 and I was in heaven, and I was greeted by a person, I would describe him as a tour guide, who was going to show me around the heavenly realm, and it was Joseph of Cupertino. This man had a tremendous walk with the Lord, and he was known in church history as a man who would be lifted up by the Spirit and would fly. And this man took me all over heaven flying. We went around mountains, over mountains, across beautiful rivers, and we arrived in the city of God. Our feet came down, and he introduced me to somebody I have never met before. I have read about the 24 elders in the book of Revelation, and he introduced me to one of the 24 elders. And he had a golden scepter in his hand that was about 6 feet long, and at the top of the scepter there was a red ruby that was cut and faceted and polished, and he took that scepter and he leaned it forward towards me, and the tip with the ruby went right into my chest. He put it right into my chest, and he said, "You haven't been sleeping good." And I said, "That's right." And he put that scepter into my chest, and I felt the love of God, the warmth of God. God's healing power went into my chest. And I know there's no time frame in heaven, but it seemed like he held it there for about 2 minutes. And he seemed like he was up to something than just more than me receiving a healing from God. Talked to the Lord about it and gave the Lord many good reasons why I thought he should give me a thumbs up to move forward on this. And I said, "Lord, this is good. There's nothing wrong with it." And the Lord came with his wonderful presence. I immediately grabbed the Bible randomly opened, and it fell to a page where the Holy Spirit seemed to lift up in 3D the verse off the page. I couldn't see any other verses. I just saw that verse. And to paraphrase it loosely, the verse basically said, "Do not do this. It will be a distraction from you and draw your attention away from me." Yes, and it could work for anybody regardless of their career, occupation, or calling. For me, there was a strong desire to go out and pray every weekend afternoon on the bleachers of the ballpark. I would just walk back and forth on the empty bleachers. There was nobody there, and I would pray in the Spirit for hours because I had this sense God has a ministry for me to the nations, and I didn't have a passport. But this thing was in me. You're going to go to the nations, begin to pray into it. So I would pray into it by speaking in tongues and just praying out in the Spirit. At the same time, while I would do that, to emphasize the impact of it, I would visualize myself getting on large jet airliners and going to nations.